Well, hey everyone, we are so glad you're here for our live stream. It's Dan Houk and
Kris Swiatocho. Oh my goodness. Hey everybody.
be sure while we're doing this, it's going to be interactive. So be sure, let us know where you're calling it or joining us from.
Yeah, where are you watching us from? And what city? And Dan, it's officially Christmas season, right?
It is.
Like as of today in church, I was able to sing Christmas carols and wear a Christmas outfit. Is that correct?
It is correct. And nuts here, crazy. Just 3.5 weeks till actual Christmas. We got some shopping to do.
I know, because Thanksgiving was so late this time, so it does kind of mess up our schedule a little bit. Who made that decision anyway about
I don't
Thanksgiving?
know. Thanksgiving should be middle of November.
Yeah. I think I need to talk to them. They need to advise me or something. So
That's right.
So thankful that you are on, everyone. And it's been a while since Dan and I have done a live event. So
it has been a minute, and we have been busy behind the scenes. We'll be talking more about that. But we have a great night for you in store. We're going to be talking about flags, green, yellow, and red. So should I explain what they are? Oh, actually, you know what? Before we do that, let's talk about our book a little bit. Yes. You and I wrote a book a few years ago.
Go ahead.
Well, why don't you talk to us about it?
So it's interesting when you're watching yourself at the same time you're talking. So there's like you're kind of hesitancy. So learning this new software too. So years ago, Dan and I met both in singles ministry. I do it full time. I speak and teach and travel around the world. And I have a ministry called the Singles Network. And so I met Dan when he was on staff at a church and leading singles. And we were joking about, well, I wouldn't say we're joking. We're kind of talking about our lives and our ministry to singles. And I joked saying, hey, we should write a book.
Yeah.
And then what happened, Dan?
I took you seriously. Actually, I had been in singles ministry for several years, and I reached out to the world expert on singles ministry, Kris Swiatocho, right here. And she came out to our church. She spoke, and we just hit it off. And yeah, we talked about relationships and singles and marriage and some of the things that singles want in their relationships. And that kind of led to a longer conversation and a desire to write a book. Well, we tried, and we never seemed to get it going until COVID hit. I know that was a bad thing, but something good came out of COVID. We were able to write this book while we were locked down and calling each other from coast to coast. And we had a lot of other people that were pouring into us and reading it and helping us. And so it was a great collaborative effort that talks about how to build healthy relationships, kind of from the very beginning to maybe even marriage, but not necessarily that if you don't want marriage, but just how do you have better relationships in general?
Yeah. All these years of doing ministry, I said, actually 20 years ago, I approached one of the authors that I co-wrote one of my first books with and said, I would love to do a 12-week Bible study on relational topics. Dealing with boundaries, dealing with conflict, do you know who you are in the Lord? Do you understand that relationship first and friendship? And I said, and he was like, I'm just, I'm just not interested. And I'm just like, but I still believe in this because I think everybody in church needs to go through courses on the basics of friendships, work relationships, family relationships, because if you're not good at those, how do you have the romantic ones, right?
That's right. And if what we want is a romantic relationship someday, then definitely got to get good friendships down. That's a basic. So we're going to be talking. Go ahead.
Folks. Well, we've got Polly from Dayton, Ohio, and Debbie from Elk Grove, and Christy Yao from Stanfield, and Kevin Yerby. Hey, Kevin from Roseville, California.
That's right. David Sadler.
I look at all these folks. Hey, everybody. Roseanne, she's one of my buds. She's from Lisbon, Ohio. Oh, my goodness. I love it. We got a variety across the world. Maybe somebody will watch from Europe, although they're probably sleeping right now. But anyway, you never know.
Well, you'll be able to watch the live stream or the repeat if you want online. But
Yes.
we do have some things to talk about tonight. And just so you know the flow of the evening, we're going to be talking about the flags, and we'll define them in a moment. But at the end, oh, look at that. You got flags. At the end, we're going to be talking about some solutions. We don't want just to saddle you with how to have red flags. We want you to have green flags. We want you to have healthy relationships. So make sure you hang on to the end. We'll be talking about those great solutions.
And too, Dan, why did we pick this topic? I think that, again, I just feel like we go into even friendships, even meeting somebody for the first time, we skips over some things. We don't really are aware of some of the things that people say that might be something we need to get more information. I know this time of year, I am single and Dan is remarried, but even people who are married, Christmas is tough.
Yeah.
People think of me, and some of them somewhere to go, someone didn't. Maybe their spouse has passed away, or maybe they're a single parent, they're struggling financially. I'm in Western North Carolina, where we've had all the hurricanes happen here, and we have people that don't even have a home right now. And so we know going through this month of December is, for some people, not a good time. Christmas is a tough time. And so relationships are hard. So if we were better at our relationships, we were better at community, it would be easier to get through a season like Christmas. And
That's true.
What a great topic to talk about, so that we can be intentional about building healthy relationships, so that we have people during those really tough times like Christmas.
I was thinking about this morning. Go ahead.
No, I was going to ask you, what's a flag? But go ahead. Tell me what you thought about.
Before I go into that, I was thinking this morning about how Jesus came into the world. He's the light that shines through the darkness, right? He came into the world and loved us. And let's be honest, we all have flags. We have red flags. We have yellow flags. We have all kinds of flags. And God loved us in spite of it. And so relationships can be hard. And flags are not something that we use to eliminate people from our lives. It's things we learn about people, and it helps us to identify how to have a good relationship with them. What kind of a friend should they be? Should they be really close? Should they be a little farther away? So we hope you learned something about flags today. But flags we're identifying them three different ways. Green flags are obviously go. They're good. They're things we want to see in people. We may want to see good character in somebody. Maybe somebody that's just thoughtful, and we notice they're thoughtful to the waiter or the waitress. Or somebody who's dependable. They're on time. If we save their seat, they show up and don't make us shoo a bunch of people away while we're waiting for them to come late, right? So there's things we notice about people over time that we just love, and it makes them closer to our heart, and we want to spend more time with them. So that's obviously a green flag. But yellow flags would be something that are more cautionary. Do you want to share a little bit about yellow flags?
Well, I think we're going to go into more detail in a few minutes. So
yes, we are.
Give some examples too. So yellow flags are just like, what did she say? What did he say? Well, I need a little bit more information. I don't really know if that's a concern. Just like a traffic light, you slow down.
Yeah. I better pray on this.
You ignore the yellow traffic lights, Roseanne. You ignore the traffic lights, and you run right through. The yellow means just to go quicker.
That's true.
In relationships, we're telling you, slow down, wait, maybe get a little bit more information. It may not be a reason to stop. You're not at the red flag. You're just slow down because maybe the information is coming too fast. You don't have all the details. And it could surely turn into a green flag. So, But then you got what about the red ones? Is it sin related? Red ones or
yes?
Not? What are they about?
Red ones are definitely character related. They're something we're seeing in another person that says, "Whoa, I definitely need to find out more before I go forward on this relationship," because it could be a deal breaker. It could be something someone has that makes it impossible to have a healthy relationship with them. And so, sadly, people do have those. But sometimes people can overcome some of those red flags in their life that you might think are a character problem, but it could be it's in the past and they've even overcome it. And so now that red flag has changed into something else, maybe more of a green flag. So we want to be able to understand what kind of character qualities somebody has. And as we're learning at them and getting to know them better, appreciating who they are, even if they've got flaws, right? Just like we have.
Right. Right. And then also knowing too that we do this to protect you. You know, God gives us this, you know, a sense of discernment, of wisdom to ask more questions, not go so fast. I can't stand the game or whatever you call it, called speed dating. Like the last thing you want to do is speed date, you know? Now you might do speed connection where you have a game. I love icebreakers. I love finding out, you know, quick things about somebody or whatever. But ultimately, even if I found out 3 or 4 things about somebody, you know, same sex or opposite sex, you know, I still need time to get to know them and whatever. I think often we get ahead of God. We get ahead of God with our friendships. You know, and we talked about this before, Dan, about, you know, have you ever had a relationship to end? Have you ever had one to end, like, not great?
Yeah. Almost all of my relationships have ended. So, actually, every romantic relationship I have ever had has ended except the one I'm in now. But
yes, and that is good. Teresa's like,
yes, that's right.
Yes.
She's awesome. But no, I've had relationships and sometimes it was because I didn't want to know about a red flag, right? If I go, la, 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 this is not happening, you know, all of a sudden I assume everything will work out fine. And of course it doesn't. Yeah. So I've had some of those things I didn't see. There were clues early on, and I probably could have asked some questions, found out a little more about them, and I would have discovered I shouldn't go any farther in this relationship. But unfortunately I did, and they ended. So yeah, I've had it. How about you?
Well, and put in the chat, folks, have you ever been in a relationship with somebody, whether it was the beginning or the end? It could be a friendship. It could be, you know, a dating relationship. It could even be a marriage, whatever. But you look back and go, you know what? I should have asked these questions. You know what? It was right in my face. Or, you know, we all have a tendency to repeat the same way we go about relationships. Yeah. Some get really excited really quickly and they jump head over heels into a friendship or a dating relationship. Some are the opposite. They're so slow. They don't know anything about that person. As a result, they don't, you know, the ball's not going back and forth, you know, it just kind of lays there. And so, so I think that, you know, for me, like I've had, obviously every romantic relationship has ended as well, because I'm still single. But I've also had friendships that ended. Some were my fault, something I did, but sometimes they were things on that other person's end. And I couldn't always see it at the time. And, you know, we repeat, like I said, we repeat a lot of the same patterns over and over. We're drawn to the similar type people for whatever reason, things in common, maybe they meet a need. You know, why do people date people that are abusive over and over, or marry an abusive person? Or why do you, you know, build friendships with people who are overly needy because you like meeting those needs? So put in the chat if you relate to this, if you've had relationships that, like, now you look back and go, oh, if I'd only asked these questions, if I'd only talked to my friends who could have helped me see some things, maybe I wouldn't have had those relationships, right?
Yep. I've been around the mountain a few times, and I remember at one point I asked a therapist, are there only crazy women out there to date? And he said, what's the common denominator? And I said, crazy women. And he said, no, you are. So... Yes. Yes.
I love that. I love that. No matter how many times you say that, Dan, I love that, because I love how you didn't see it. And so the common denominator was you. And that's part of the reason why we wrote the study, folks, because I kept getting people say to me, why God hasn't brought me someone. And, you know, we're in a broken world. There's just the healthiness, our ratio male to female is not even. We have a lot of brokenness, a lot of hurt, a lot of baggage, a lot of everything, right? Yeah. And so for some people, it could be God saying no, and God's got you on a different path.
Yeah.
And then for some, it could be you. And
Yeah.
always, we love to say, would you date you? And I would say, would you be friends with you?
Yeah.
Let's go back even farther than dating. Would you be friends with somebody like you? If you're a
That's good.
pain, if you're a whiner, if you're constantly needy, if you constantly, need someone to affirm you, to feel value, why would somebody want to be your friend? And so,
That's good.
would you date you, but would you friend you? And I think that that's also the maybe, we're going to talk about the yellows and the red flags and the
Yeah.
green flags, but we're also maybe you've had, maybe you're the consequences of some flags that people have had from you.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe a part of tonight's talk is also praying and saying, Holy Spirit, show me where maybe I'm the cautionary flag that somebody has talked to. Somebody's asked
Yeah.
me questions and I've given them a yellow flag, and because I'm not willing to deal with my mess.
Yeah. That's so good.
Yeah. So, well, let's go deeper, Dan.
Let's
I
do it.
want to hear you. As, psychology here. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Let's go a little deeper. So,
Should we talk about yellow flags first?
yeah, I mean, we've already talked about green. Green is just that compatibility. People you
Right.
want to hang out with, people that you have things in common. You know what I mean, guys. You meet
Yep.
somebody, you're like, oh, this person, we click. Those are good. But then the next level, right, should be those
Right.
yellow flags. So,
Have you, if
would be a
you're
yellow
in the
flag?
audience, why don't you post what you think a yellow flag might be in a relationship? So, what might be something that would give you caution when you're talking to somebody?
Yeah.
So, we've just finished a political season, haven't we? Do you think politics could be a yellow flag in a relationship?
Yes. And you know what's funny is in the last 2 weeks, I've had people testing me.
Mm-hmm.
I've had people like in conversations at church, conversations out in public. They've said, "Yeah, so what do you think about things?" I'm like, I'm not getting pulled into that. They're trying to see where because I guess they're hoping that I will have voted a way they didn't like, or maybe I did vote in the way they did like, and then they want to feel good about their vote.
Yeah.
But how can that be? How does that turn into a yellow flag?
I think it depends on how you feel about somebody else's perspective. So one of the things I've seen in this political season is there's people who want to gauge in, well, I want to hear more about why you think that's the best person. Whereas there's other people that think if you vote for that person, you're evil. And the reality is, in our political world, I don't think any political party necessarily has they own all the right topics and all the right values. One may have more than the other. I'm not here to argue that. But if you have strong political beliefs and you meet somebody else, and let's say normally you wouldn't go out with somebody who's a Republican or a Democrat, but in this case, they're super hot, and so you're going to make an exception. Well, it can lead to problems. Now, if you're able to talk things through, that's great. But it would be one of those things that could get in the way of a relationship if you don't really talk about it and try and understand each other's perspective.
So what would be, people put in the chat, you might want to read some of those comments that people have put in the chat. But because some of these would be red flags to me that people have put in the chat. But yellow flags, and here's something too, guys, I want to just tell you. Yellow flags it's yellow, it's slow. And so you ask these questions because you really want the answer.
Right.
And so often I think what we do is we don't ask certain questions because we're afraid of the answer. So for me, I have what's called filtering questions when I get to know somebody. One of my questions is, where do you go to church? How often do you go to church? Do you serve? How do you serve? What is your passion? What do you love to do? What do you love about church? What's your favorite scripture?
Yep.
I don't ask them all that fast, but I'm just saying, I want to know, even if I'm building a friendship with a girl and just want to get to know her, because it lets me know a little bit more about her to see, why is she in my life? Have you put her in my life because I'm to disciple her?
Right.
Or is she in my life to disciple me? Is she in my life because I need to network with her? I need to maybe connect her to some resources to help
Yeah.
her. So I ask those questions. But if I meet somebody and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, let's go on vacation together. That's so much fun. Like you're just like the best thing in the whole world.
Right.
And then you find out that they are not even in church. We're not equally yoked.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so that for me is, that's important. But what about some other
Yeah.
yellow flags?
We got some others here. Somebody said smoking. I mean, I agree. I think if you're not a smoker and somebody else is a smoker, that would make it very difficult. That might be even more of a red flag. Again, these things are fluid. It obviously has to depend on the couple, the two friends that are involved. But somebody says politics isn't a yellow or red flag. I think, again, that would be an individual thing. You're probably right sometimes, but other times it could be a red flag to some. Yeah, definitely if they don't. Christy Yao says if they just attend church but don't participate. I think you can be unequally yoked spiritually with somebody, even if you both go to the same church. You have to understand where somebody's coming from, spiritually.
And
So,
again, that leads to another question. I would say I'm not going to make it a red flag and make it a deal breaker. Like, oh, they're not
yeah,
serving church. I'm going to ask another question. I'm like, why? And if they
yeah,
said, well, I take care of a parent or I have a sick
hmm,
child at home. And so right now I'm taking a break and I'm not able to. Oh, okay. So see,
yep,
but if not ask the second or third or fourth
yep,
question, you would
yeah,
immediately make that decision. So yellow flags or red flags are not necessarily to end the
yeah,
possible future friendship or dating relationship, but it's also to look at your boundaries. Like what is
right,
important to you and what is a deal breaker for you? What would be like, I don't
yep,
care. Not a sin for you, Dan, but it's a sin to me, or it's not an issue to you, but it's an issue to me. But like,
yeah.
what are some more yellow flags that you think people, deal
Some things that are maybe not as obvious, like love languages. Yeah, I was talking to somebody one time whose love language was quality time. And she had actually married someone who was an over the road truck driver. Well, they fell in love, everything was great. They dated, they got married, and then he was gone, most of the month, every month. It was devastating to her. So that's something that would be a yellow flag for some. It might be a red for others. But those are the kinds of things when somebody's a little bit different to you in a way that you go, huh, it causes your antenna to go up. You want to ask more questions like you talked about to find out where they're coming from. Do you have to do that for a living? Is there something else you could do closer to home? Or if you know somebody has that as a love language, you might want to protect them by not allowing the fall in love with you. So
Right, right. Well, like mine is quality time, and I've shared this before. My mom, who lives with me, hers is quality time, but it's defined differently. Quality
mhm.
time for me is sitting and having a cup of coffee and talking. Quality time for my mother is going to a thrift store. So even within those, my other one is touch, physical touch.
Yeah,
But it doesn't have to be, like I greet at my church and I get little hugs from kids. And that meets so many of my needs, right?
yeah,
And so for other people, you might, you're like, well, I'm just sorry. I have to, be in a relationship with someone, in a romantic relationship where I'm constantly, you're grabbing my hand and giving me a hug and whatever.
hmm,
Well, if you meet somebody and that's not theirs,
yeah.
you're going to be constantly looking for that, and it's never going to happen.
That's true.
You can't make
Yeah,
somebody be who they're not, and they may
yeah,
know that's a desire that you have, but they can't become somebody they're not. And
yeah,
so, I think asking that early on, and especially if someone you're talking to, somebody you're looking at being
yeah,
romantic with, you definitely ask those questions. What
yeah.
about like?
Fanny
Go
wrote
ahead.
something
You
in
got
her.
a question?
She wrote
Uh,
finances. Somebody not good with finances. And you know what, Fanny, I think that's a great comment because finances initially may not be an issue, but if you have financial struggles throughout a marriage, it can really add a lot of stress. Somebody that comes into the marriage with a lot of debt, those might not be deal breakers, but they're definitely things that you need to pay attention to because you don't want to set yourself up for failure in the future because you don't address something right now that you need to find out more about.
Yep. Well, this one is probably getting more towards red flags, which
Yeah.
is, I would say, sex outside of marriage.
Hmm.
That's no yellow. That's a red one, but maybe we'll go to that one in a minute. And I'm hoping those that are watching also believe the same way. But I'll tell you something. I talked with a lady yesterday, and she said to me, Kris, I've decided I'm just not going to date anymore. And I said, well, what's up with that? She says, you know what? I've been online dating, and she said, literally, I get to the fourth date. And up to the fourth date, they are kind, they are courteous. We pray, they throw out scriptures, we talk about the Lord, mission, work, and you're just like, oh my gosh, I just like it's everything's great. Green flags, green flags. And then fourth date, no lie, they're ready to have sex. And she says, these are even Christian guys that are in church. And so she said, it just blows her away. And she says, it just crushes her heart. But to me, it's like, I don't know. I guess I would have asked that question on the first date. I mean,
Yeah.
why go through 4 dates and get your heart broken to find out that? But for me, it's a red flag. But I guess for some of those men that she's talking about and some women.
Actually, I've heard the same thing from guys.
Yeah,
Saying
that's what I'm
that
saying.
women,
Both sides.
it's interesting because I had to talk with our singles ministry about this one time. And women often will give up that for the sake of getting a relationship. So I think it is both, men and women that have issues with it, but definitely if you are having a pattern of that, it can undermine your relationships. It undermines your ability to connect and bond with people. There's a woman at our church, Barb Wilson, who wrote a book about breaking the invisible bond. And she discovered that over time, psychologically, you can't bond to somebody if you keep sexually bonding over and over again. So it can, you may not think much of it, like they're past it, but it could create a problem for them to be able to bond to you.
Well, wouldn't that, again, going back to the yellow flag, right?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you to me, I think you can do it in casual conversation. I mean, just say, well, what is your stance politically? What's your stance financially? Are you a messy person?
Yeah.
Are you a clean person? If you're, or what do you believe in sex outside of marriage and define sex?
Yeah.
Because for some, it's, when we were growing up, there was first base, second base, third base, but what does that mean to you? And how far is too far? I remember Dick Purnell used to say anywhere the bathing suit was off limits. And I'm thinking, oh no, it's farther than that. Anywhere the entire bodysuit is.
Yeah.
Because, it's just your body is very sensual.
Yep.
And so even talking about it can actually create, visuals and whatever. So I think talking about those things up front, don't wait till you're on a fourth or fifth date with somebody. But also, I mean, there's obviously, you mentioned one time love bombing. Let's talk about that a little bit because some people may not know what we're talking about.
Yeah, I think that's more of a red flag. So love bombing, and maybe, are we in red flags now?
Well, we've kind of, we're going on both sides. I think it's okay.
Okay, we are. So I would say love bombing, if someone's saying, oh, you're awesome, you're amazing, I've never met anybody like you. I connect you like I've never connected to anybody. You're so amazing. So if you're hearing this over and over from somebody and it happens very quickly, that could be a narcissist doing what they call love bombing. And a narcissist, when they find somebody, if they find somebody that really responds to that, they will keep doing that to draw you in. And once they get you in a relationship, that's when the pain and the abuse and emotional abuse begins to happen. So a normal relationship will develop over time, not slowly, but in a kind of in a consistent manner, right? So you'll grow closer over time. But if you feel like you're growing close right away, then that could be a sign there might be a problem in that relationship.
Right. I mean, when we were young, and I think people do it today, we always want our best foot forward. I mean, we dress to look nice. We want to be we want them to be attractive to us. I would even say the same thing in some friendships, where, women might put on makeup that don't normally wear makeup. Guys might brush their teeth and they normally don't brush their teeth. I don't know. You're trying to impress someone, right?
Yes.
You're like, yeah, I've got 10 trophies, and didn't realize there were trophies for first grade, and so you're trying to impress that person. And so you may not be completely honest. You may not be completely truthful. And then later on, of course, we find out that, some of these things that you said weren't true.
Yeah.
And they were just or to build you up, or maybe you were just putting on, as I remember, and you can speak on this being married, as I would say to men, and whatever it did to get her, you continue to do it to keep her. And so, the pursuit. And the same thing with women. I mean, whatever you did to continue that connection, when you were dating somebody, all the way back to friendship, what type of friend were you? Well, then you want to keep doing that in the dating relationship. Then whatever you did in the dating, you want to keep doing in the marriage. We talk about this in chapter 12 of the book about engagement, how I've met so many singles that every day of their engagement is about their wedding, and then they get married and they have nothing to talk about.
Yeah.
So again, whatever it takes, but often once I've got the person, now I'm going to let them really see who I am.
Yeah. I think there's a certain normalcy to when you get really close to somebody, them, maybe you let some of that pursuit slip a little, but you need to be aware of it and talking about it. It even happens in my relationship with Teresa sometimes. But in our book, we talk about God being our true intentional relationship. And if you think about him, it says, God showed his love towards us while we were yet sinners. Christ died for us. So he was pursuing us before we even were aware of him. And then it says, I will never leave you or forsake you. So he's constantly pursuing us. That's what makes God so special to us. But in our relationships, sometimes we kind of take people for granted a little bit. We get to know them at first, and then we kind of just get a little soft or don't pursue them as much. And we need to be aware of that and make sure we're showing people their value by pursuing them.
Well, and here's some other little things. I mean, guys, you can put anything in the chat about, yellow flags, red flags, things that you've experienced or things that are important to you. And understand, it may be really important to you, but it's not necessarily important to other people. So you can have your rules, but also understand, why is that a rule? Is it because of something that's happened in the past? Maybe it's happened in other relationships. Making assumptions. Well, I'll never date a person with kids because, the last 2 people I dated, the kids were brats and blah, blah, blah. Well, that doesn't mean all kids are brats. Don't make that a hard, fast, make it first about God. Or I don't date people that are a little bit overweight. Why? Because you think you're going to always be thin? I mean, is that really a deal breaker? Or again, let God. Now, if they're overweight and they're unhealthy and you are an exercise person, then probably you're not compatible. But making these hard, fast, he's losing his hair. By the time, 5 years, he'll be bald. Well, some people are very attractive with no hair, you know? So, so to me,
of course they are.
Teresa would say yes.
Yes.
But I just think that sometimes what's cautionary to us really is coming out of a fear or an insecurity of something that's happened to us as a child, or maybe even a friend of ours. I know that when people struggle with self-esteem, they don't make good eye contact. They have really bad self-talk. They cut themselves down. They're on social media and they're taking 50 million pictures of themselves. And it's just like, these to me are yellow flags. Mm-hmm. I don't necessarily think that I don't know if it necessarily means I wouldn't date them if it's a romantic, if somebody of the opposite sex, but I personally, I'm drawn to men that are confident, men that get great eye contact and a firm handshake and know who they are. It doesn't mean they're not kind and gentle, but for me, a man that looks down and he's got his eyes over here is a yellow flag. But there's probably something deeper there that's going on. Will you say, Dan?
Yep, for sure. Marty Solis, who's on our YouTube channel, he said that men need to lead the relationships in a healthy way with God. And if they're getting their instructions from God, it's true. I think a lot of women are attracted to a guy who is following God because they can trust God. Yes. So if a guy's doing it, they can trust the guy too.
Yeah,
that's a great point. You know, it's
Yes.
funny when you were talking about the kind of growth that can happen. I was thinking about my own journey. I was married for 25 years. I got divorced. I had definitely some red and yellow flags that I had to work through. But as I worked through them, I began to get a little more healthier. And you'd see some of my dating relationships were healthier. And in the end, I feel like I was at least healthy enough to have a good relationship with Teresa. But it was a process. And even in the process of discovering some of my red flags or my yellow flags, I had people in my life that were able to reveal them to me, or maybe circumstances in a dating relationship or a friendship revealed it to me. And I was able to work on some of those things and change the dynamic so I wasn't repeating the same mistakes over and over again anymore.
Yeah. Well, and I agree too. You know, I've had to go through lots of things to even write this book.
Yeah.
You know, intentional friendship is the chapter 10, which is that step between a basic friendship and then intentionally dating, is that place where you build that deeper friendship. You ask all those questions. That's why you put 650 in the back of the book.
Yep.
To help with those flags, to help you identify the things that are important to you, the things that are you think are important or not as important because you've got some stuff connected to it from the past, or you know, things need sooner than later. You don't get emotionally attached to someone. So, you know, God gave me that term, intentional friendship, but I had to go through some of them and do it the wrong way, the right way, so that I can then help others the same way. And it's not a perfect formula, because I've started some intentional friendships with different guys that didn't even last past a week. You know, like you start conversations, and within the first 2 or 3 conversations, you find out that you are so far from being equally yoked. I'm not even going to keep going. And so I think that, you know, when you really want to do what God wants you to do, when you're willing to wait on him, when God is enough, he's enough. You don't need a person to complete you. He completes you. When you get to that place, then you can relax when it comes to building any relationships with anybody else. You know, we haven't talked about family at all.
Right. Does family play an impact in relationships?
Yeah, slightly at Christmas time. Oh my goodness, it adds a lot of stress. You know, I know it's almost like a sidebar, but even into the red flags, Dan, you know, and I know, and everybody watching this, you have things you know you do not say when family's around.
Right.
You don't say at Christmas time, you don't bring up things, and you know that there are topics that will cause division, cause problems, cause anger. And so it's not really necessarily, you know, we're talking about red flags, yellow flags, but definitely things that affect our relationships that we know are not resolved, or we just can't come to an agreement. And so you have to pick and choose your words, don't you?
Yep. I think that family not only can affect, you know, you have a relationship with your family, so it's either good or bad depending on the family member, your health, their health. But I think family members affect other relationships often. I was thinking about being a pastor. One of the demographics I work with a lot is blended families. So couples who have blended families. And oh my gosh, there are so many problems that the couple is having that's related to people outside of their family, like their extended family members or the former spouse or things like that. So you can sometimes have maybe a yellow or a red flag could be the fact that somebody has kids. What's the dynamic of that family? So if you become a part of that, then you're going to be in the middle of that. So how do you navigate all that? And Teresa and I, go ahead.
My mother lives with me, so she's not going anywhere.
Right.
So she's packaged. So if I meet somebody, I throw it out there right away. I put it out there right in the beginning, because I don't want anybody to think that we're putting my mom in an old folks home. It's a deal breaker. And I know you don't know my mom, but if you knew her, you would just love her, and she's a really good cook. You know, so you would but that's something I think, if that's important to you, and you want to put that out there right away, or like you don't believe in sex outside of marriage, or
Yeah.
you believe it's important to be in church, or whatever is important to you, I think it needs to be out there quicker
Yeah.
than sooner than later, because I wouldn't want to keep going into a relationship with somebody realizing, oh my goodness, you get your kids every other weekend, and how old are they, or they live with
Yeah.
you now, oh, or you're still doing vacations with your ex. That's kind of unusual.
Yeah.
Or your child, you're paying for all your kids and alimony. So after your paycheck is done, you've got $3. So I guess I'll be supporting you. So
Yeah.
those are like, you're right. Those other relationships do affect us. And there's a good, questions. Now, Kevin said that we skipped over green flags too much, and he wants us to go back and talk a little bit about green flags. Do you want to do that, Dan?
Why don't we tack that on the very end when we're going to the advice section? I just want to go a little bit more into this, because I was thinking about how the family members or extended family can impact us, because it's a part of our life. You're not going to get away from it unless you have completely detached from your family. You have no connection to them. Chances are whoever's in your life, friends or a romantic partner, they're going to be involved in that. So one of the things Teresa and I did early on is we actually sought counseling. We didn't even necessarily need it all the time. Sometimes, yeah, but we sought counseling, and we would go to a counselor sometimes to preempt an upcoming event or something that was going on, because we knew the ex was going to be there, or one of our kids was, maybe being kind of a little weird, a little sideways. So we wanted a plan, and so we would come up with a plan. So we were together in the middle. So no matter what was going on around us, we were solid in the middle. And a lot of navigating any of these kinds of flags, but especially family, is having good communication. Right. Just honest, open communication. And then maybe talking to somebody else that can help us navigate whatever the situation is we're in. Because we don't always have the right perspective ourselves. Sometimes we need a third or a fourth perspective that can shed some light, and maybe they don't have the emotional connection and they're not, all worked up about it. So we found it's really helpful to go outside and ask for advice from others.
And pretty much, if you're over a certain age, any person that you even build a friendship with is going to have kids or grandkids. There's going to be exes involved. There may be more than one ex involved. And then as you get older, other things too, you're going to have health issues. That has to be discussed. Somebody asked, like, when do you ask some of these hard questions? And, in the intentional friendship, you can ask them anytime you want to.
Yeah.
They don't have to answer, but you can ask them anytime you want to, because if it's important to you, then I think it needs to be discussed like quickly. But now let's go back on the intentional friendship. Tonight, we're not talking in detail what that is, but because a lot of people always say, how do you start one and where do you go? Yeah. If you're just talking to somebody and you met them somewhere and you just started a conversation, you became friends on Facebook and you're chatting back and forth, you're asking all those green questions. You're asking your favorite flavor of ice cream. Where do you like to go on vacation? What was your best friend growing up, and what kind of sports you play? You're asking all those little baby, simple, surfacey questions. But then at some point in time, as the Holy Spirit leads and you feel like the door is open, you go a little deeper, like, well, where are you going to church? I can't tell you how many people I find they've been talking to somebody for weeks and don't even know where they go to church, or they're even a believer.
Right.
So if it's important to you that they are spiritually mature, unless you're not mature, then I guess it doesn't matter. But for me, I want to know, I'm going to ask those things right up front, and also debt-wise. Now, I'm not a millionaire. So to me, I'm not concerned about how much money you make because I'm in ministry. We don't make any money, right, Dan? We don't make any money. But I am concerned about debt because I have no debt. So I would want to know, are you a spender? Do you have a lot of debt? Because again, for me, that's a red flag for me. Now, what kind of debt? Were they in the hospital? Nobody can control that. Or if they have a gambling problem at one time, or whatever, then again, more questions. But I think you ask those questions when it's important to you, but I wouldn't say the first conversation.
No. Polly Couch Parks said that it seems like flags are subjective, and I would agree to a certain extent. I think there's going to be some, it'll be red for this person, it'll yellow for that person, green for somebody else. There are certain things, though, that get in the way of a healthy relationship, and there's no way they won't. And I'll give you some examples. Addictions. An addiction is a relationship with a substance, or maybe pornography, whatever it is. An addiction is something that is a relationship in itself, and it takes precedence over every other relationship. So if somebody has addiction issues, I'd say that's a red flag. They're not a candidate for a close relationship. You might be able to mentor them, but it definitely wouldn't be a romantic relationship. It would be something you would want to see them have some distance and some success over before you would be in a relationship with somebody like that. Again, that could be a positive if you see somebody overcome it, but if they've had a few months and maybe no help in their life, they've just white-knuckled it and done it, to me, I would say, what has changed in your life that would give me some comfort that this problem's not going to come back? Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and also, again, you should say objective person, to me, not a believer. If I'm a Christian, God says unequally yoked. No. So there is no, now people will say, well, I dated my wife and she was lost and I led her to the Lord. Wow, that's a lot of work. And what if she didn't go? And then you've got a marriage based on one person following God, one person not. And that's that love triangle. All of a sudden you're going to God and they're going this way. So to me, that is a red flag. That's a deal breaker for me. Yeah. But there's a lot of people out there call themselves Christians and they date atheists all the day long. And they don't care. Yeah. Well, that tells me that their relationship with God's not very good. It's not very close. They're just saying they're a follower, but they're not really.
If their greatest, most important relationship is God, it impacts other relationships. You prioritize that. And it's hard to have a close relationship with God when you're in a relationship with an atheist, for sure. Do you want to, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was wondering if you wanted to switch gears to green, or did you want to stay?
No, I was just saying other, for me, people have anger issues. So you're driving in the car and all of a sudden they're road rage. They lose it. They completely throw things and all over the place. And that's a consistent, to me, that's would be a major deal breaker, because I don't know if it's going to get better, especially they might be abusive. If they cut you down, narcissism, if they've cut you down. I was in a relationship, an intentional friendship with someone that ended up being narcissistic. I didn't know what that meant at the time. And then in hindsight, I went, oh, he walked 15 feet in front of me. Oh, he love bombed me. Oh. And when you want to be loved so much, when you don't want to be alone, you are blind. Yeah. You do not see things, and you don't ask enough of the right questions that should be red flags. You literally talk yourself into believing they're just cautionary, but you're good. You're strong enough. You're strong enough you can make it work. And no, you can work on you, control you, but you can't control that other person. So for me, those are like big ones. Someone who makes excuses for everything in their life, every excuse on why this and why that, this person's fault and this person's fault. They might be able to get some counseling, but for right now, for me, they got to go. Yeah. They're not somebody I can have in my life. They just suck the life out of me, and they'll pull me away. It's easier to pull somebody away than it is to pull them up, right? It's easier to, so I think if you've got people in your life that you find them testing you or pushing you or making you doubt what you believe or trying to get you to not go to church or whatever, those are deal breakers for me. Those are red flags. And I have to separate myself from that person.
Yeah, for sure.
Any more questions that we've missed?
Yeah. Does anybody have any red flags you want us to discuss or yellow flags? Go ahead and put it in the comments section. But I was thinking about what you said. One of the best things you can do for yourself, and this is along the lines of a solution, but if you find yourself really wanting that affirmation or that love bombing that somebody might give you, and you just desperately need it, it could be an indication you need community. And
Yeah.
one of the important things you can do is get involved in a community at your church, in a small group, start serving. Make sure there's people in your life that you trust, that could speak into your life, that affirm you. You want the right people affirming you. You don't want to have to desperately get it from somebody who's unhealthy.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's reversed. Maybe you're the flag, maybe you're the person that, like people get to know you and you're like, I just like we were hanging out, we had a good conversations and then she doesn't call me anymore. Like, I thought things were going well and then just something happened. Maybe you said something that was a red flag for them or a yellow flag and
Yeah.
they didn't ask you more questions. But, and it's definitely something that needs to change in you. That needs to be worked on. I have somebody right now that emails me ever so often, and they don't email me this much. They email me this much, and they're saying the same thing over and over and over and over. And I respond in the same way over and over and over, and they don't get it. They don't get
Yeah.
it, Dan, and they don't see that they're the problem.
Yeah.
And they're or people will contact me and say, my church doesn't care about singles. They want to, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And I go, this is it's a bigger answer than
Yeah.
I can give in
Yeah.
one comment. So I go to my website and you'll see so there's some advice there, some direction there. Maybe God is calling you to start this, but they'll ask me these same types of questions over and over. And the problem is, if you go and you aggravate your pastors and you
Yeah.
nag them, they're not going to start singles. And so, but if they don't get it either, like you've given them advice, which comes back to the last thing that was on our list. If people are not
Yeah.
willing to grow, if they're not willing to go to counseling, if they don't think they need counseling, I'm good.
Yeah.
Right? You've gone to counseling. I've gone to counseling. I think it's important that we be willing to say, I'm in an area. I don't know what to do. I'm not sure how to fix this. I need some deeper help. What would you speak on that, Dan?
I highly recommend counseling. I was thinking, as you were talking about narcissists, one nice thing about narcissists, they'll never be on a channel like this trying to get relationship help because they've got it all figured out. So,
I love it. I love
yeah,
it.
I went to counseling for 2 years straight to try and work on my people-pleasing issues. I was a fixer. I would find women who had problems, and if they did, then I felt like I had value to them. But without them, I didn't have value. I had to work on my own self-worth, my sense of identity. Once I did that, then I was in a much better place to have healthy relationships.
Dan, do you want to talk about any of these alsos that we had listed in our outline, or do you want to just go right into solutions and talk about my green flags? What would you like to do?
Let's jump into green flags, but then we'll talk about solutions to the red flags. So
Okay.
let me jump in green flags. I said earlier, like if somebody's courteous, I think we had Polly write this, but somebody who has the same values as you, that's so important. You want to make sure you're in alignment there. Somebody who is interested in you. They ask questions about yourself.
All goes back and forth, right?
Yes. They compliment you and affirm who you are, not for themselves, but for you.
Yeah.
So,
I like big tippers. I
yeah,
think people who tip well, because if you're going to witness and talk about, hey, can we pray for you? We're getting ready to pray.
yeah,
You want to tip well. And that's to me is a green flag. I love that. The
yeah,
ball going back and forth is definitely important. Somebody who takes ownership of their mess,
yeah.
takes ownership of their failure in their marriages.
If you can admit when you're wrong, right?
Yep. Yep.
If you have a lesson from every negative experience in life, like if you came out of a relationship, even if you consider them to be the problem, but you learned something, that shows a green flag to me. That's healthy.
Yep. I think also having a good relationship with your kids.
Yeah,
And obviously children, you were once a child, you can have 3 or 4 kids and have 1 or 2 that didn't turn out so great, and maybe it wasn't anything you did, but we're all grown up and we do what we want to do. But I think when I talk to singles in ministry as I'm working with singles, whatever, and they say, yeah, my kids are coming this weekend. We've had some problems with this one, but God has really worked on that. We've been praying through this, or I've got a couple prodigals.
yeah,
That to me is somebody who's actively seeking to work on mending and healing their relationships with their kids. that to me is somebody that is a healthier person that
Yeah.
I would want in my ministry. I'd want to lead. I'd want them to lead an intentional relationship study.
Yeah.
And so I'm, being in ministry and you being a pastor, we're always looking for people who can lead. We're always looking for people who are good at volunteering, people that can help teach the next generation, the next person that's going through, because there's so many unhealthy. There's so many that are not there, and hopefully they will get there. Hopefully they'll get counseling and they'll take some advice. And then, the word says the poor will always be with you. So there's always going to be people poor in spirit, poor emotionally, poor financially, poor that are always there. So you can't wear yourself out to constantly pour into those types of people. But I'm always doing an assessment. I'm talking with people, getting information about them. And I'm so much better, Dan, at going slow.
Yeah.
Because I've been burned. I have jumped too quickly into friendships and definitely too quickly into romantic relationships. And I don't want to be hurt anymore. I want to learn. I don't want to keep making the same mistakes. And I don't want to. I want to be able to look at the last one and go, where did I mess up? What did I did? Is it my fault, their fault? Is it just wasn't God's timing? Because I want to listen close enough to him that he tells me what I need to do differently here in these relationships. So.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's great advice. Why don't we kick off into solutions now?
Okay. All right. Well, the first one is obviously prayer. Pray about God, who do you want me to meet today? I always call it a God incident. Some of you watching know that I've been using that term for quite some time. I get up in the morning and say, Lord, who do you want me to meet today? Who do you want me to talk to? And understand, you have to allow time in your day to start those conversations, to start those beginning friendships. So if you're going 100 miles an hour, you don't have time to stop in line at Walmart and talk to somebody, or the Walgreens. You don't have time to, if you go by church to pick up something, to start a conversation with somebody at church. So you need to allow enough time to be interrupted by God to then talk to the person he wants you to talk to. So as you pray every morning for that, you'll become more aware of how God lines up these conversations. Philippians 4:6 says, do not be anxious, but make your request known to God through prayer, supplication with thanksgiving. So that's, to me, the first one is like, God, who do you want me to talk to today? Yeah. And is it for your purpose? My purpose? Is it to help them? Because every initial connection, it could lead to whatever. And one of them could be romantic. Yeah. But it has to start with prayer.
Yep. It's interesting. When I finally got it with dating and it stopped being about me, I started wanting to bring value to every connection I made. I remember always praying, Lord, whatever you want to happen tonight, I pray you'll use me to help it happen. Help me to be a blessing no matter what happens. The outcome is yours. And it just was so much less stressful for me because I didn't have to make anything happen. I just had to be myself and try and be led by God. So
yeah, but if you live like you go 100 miles an hour all the time, well, it's really difficult to have time for somebody. Yeah. I'm going to tell you, being in the hurricane has affected Western North Carolina, I have met so many amazing people, and I've heard so many amazing stories, and I've seen God do some incredible things, but I had to be willing to pivot. I've had to be willing to stop doing some of my normal ministry things so I could stop and be there for people. Yeah. And I can't do that if it's about me doing my agenda, what I've got to get done, what I've got to get accomplished. Right. I've had to. Ministry is ministry, Dan. I mean, whether I'm helping somebody get out of a tent into a camper, or whether I'm speaking in front of 1,000 people, it's still sharing the word of God. Yeah. And so I've just noticed how they're not going 100 miles an hour. Their entire house and home are gone. They're just barely functioning. And so I've had to slow down and just listen to them and say, what can I do for you? What do you need? Yeah. And sometimes they just want to talk. That's all they want to do is just talk. And I have to work on that one, listening.
Yeah. Oh, no, you don't. You got it down. No, I think taking time and listening is huge in relationships. And it's especially true when you're trying to get to know someone. Don't assume you know everything about them, the red flags, the yellow flags, whatever it is. It just means you need to find out more about them. Yep. I would say this too. Believe what people tell you. So if someone's telling you who they are, believe them. And that's through their actions and their words. But often people suspend their belief because of what they want. They have a fantasy and they want that fantasy to happen in this relationship, so they stop believing what they see. And it's important for us to just really understand who they are and accept them for who they are, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be the person we want them to be in our life.
Or the one.
Yeah.
You know,
or the one.
praise God for all the ones that weren't the one for me.
Yeah.
You know, I've got some amazing guy friends because they weren't the one. And
Yeah.
I'm just so super blessed to have those people in my life. I want to go back real quick before we finish out the solutions and just comment on one person who's talking about loneliness and community. So I always tell people, you know, this is one of my things that I say all the time is, you know, we're not lonely if you're a Christian, because that means you have no hope, but we're alone. Yeah. And so I don't like to say I'm lonely, because that's literally putting a word on me that's not true. I may feel that, but I'm not, because I have the Lord. But during this time, if you don't build community, if you don't make an effort, if you don't go out and join a Sunday school class, join a small group, go serve, if you're not intentional about asking questions with people, to get to know them, to go to coffee, to go to lunch, and build that community. And it takes time. You can't just instantaneously. But if you don't, it does affect you. And the enemy loves us to be alone. Not because you're close to God. He loves you to be alone because that's when you're stupid. All right. That's when I'm stupid. I make bad mistakes. I overeat. I shop. I buy things I don't need. And so going into the rest of this month, be really aware that, you know what, if you don't have that core group, because, you know, I haven't joined a church, or I haven't really been involved in Sunday school, or, you know, I've been sick and I haven't, you need to figure it out, because this is a tough month for people. And so you need to go, you know what, there's a lot of ways to serve. There's so many people out there that need serving. And so please jump in and don't let the enemy get a foothold, because that's what he wants to do in your life.
Yeah.
Which leads to don't get ahead of God. His timing is best, right? He knows well. Proverbs 16:9 says, in their hearts, human plan their course, right? We kind of plan what we want to do, don't we, Dan? And
it's funny. I heard a sermon this morning how on our timing and God's time are completely different, you know, how God came to Mary and said, hey, by the way, I know you're not quite married yet, but you're going to be pregnant. Explain that to all your family and friends. I'm sure if Mary had her choices, she would much rather had a less unusual circumstance to have to explain to people. Like, no, really, it was God. He did say it to me. Hey, this is really Jesus. You know, so I feel like in life, often we get ahead of God, and God has his own way of bringing the right people into our lives at the right time. And so it's important to just be patient for him. So,
but we do make a lot of plans, and we instead of saying, God, this is where I'm going, this is where I'm going to go to school, this is where I'm going to get a job, this is where I'm going to live. Yeah. But if you have something else in mind, it's not really what I want, but maybe this is a part, you know, I want to be used by you. You know, our purpose in life is a relationship with God that glorifies him, and out of that relationship, a relationship with others. Doesn't matter whether you're digging a ditch or you're a doctor. It's where God's positioned you in order to reach people for him. And also to put you in those pinpoints. I have to tell you this because it just brought up a story. So I've been helping with different people in West North Carolina, lots of different groups. And I've been helping one particular group that has been going through basically a struggle of leadership. So they're like a Barnabas and Paul. They both love God. They both want to serve God. They both believe in helping people, but they have a different vision of how to accomplish it. And so I've been witnessing and sharing scripture and praying for one of the leaders just because I felt led to do that. I felt like they were under a lot of pressure. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of responsibility, a lot of money involved. And I'm just, you know, peon at the bottom here, helping whatever I can help. And so I was on their way over there to deliver some supplies, and there was something going on. There was some type of argument going on between the leadership, and I got turned around accidentally, made the wrong turn. So I was delayed by 5 minutes. So I pull up right literally at the time of the explosion. And one of the people said, we're so sorry that you're here right this second, but can you do us a favor? Can you go over to this other location? And would you go with one of the leaders? We need to resolve this. I'm like, well, okay, this is weird. I get there and they said, you, Kris, literally were an answer to prayer because we were in the middle of just this horrible thing. And you pulled up in the most perfect timing because we knew you brought peace. We knew you brought calmness to, which again, don't laugh, a calmness to us, and that you were there to help us. And they go, like, we knew that God brought you in the middle of that. And I was
That's
like,
awesome.
Is that, again, God's timing, right? If I had made the right turn, I would have gotten there way earlier and it would not have been the right time. And so again, that goes back to, wouldn't you rather stay single than wish you were single?
Yeah. Well, also, I think to your point, involving friends in our life, in our choices, in our relationships, getting advice from trusted friends. So what your friends did was they recognized your value, that they didn't have whatever it is they needed for this situation, but you did. And I think all of us are like that at times, especially when our hearts get involved. Whether it's a friend or somebody we're dating, it doesn't matter. There are times we need somebody else to speak to us. Because often I don't know if you're like this, Kris, but I always assume I'm right. That's where I start. That's my baseline. I'm right. You're wrong. Now we can go from here, right? But I find every once in a while that my friends don't think I'm right. And they're able, in a gracious way, to help me see something from a different perspective that I need to see.
Yeah. Well, that kind of goes into those blind spots. You know, we talk about it in chapter 5 in our book. And by the way, I see Dave is watching. Hey, Dave. We talk about those things that we don't see. And, in your car, you don't see your blind spot. And if it wasn't for people around you that honk their horn and go, you're a crazy person, you're in the wrong lane or whatever. But I just think people who know you well and know your weaknesses, they know where you struggle. They know that you want somebody so bad that you might get ahead of God, or you might secretly start a relationship with somebody and you don't tell them, and you should. We need to be transparent. We need to be open. We need to entrust 2 or 3 friends that we can be really open with and say, listen, I've started talking with somebody, this is kind of where we are. And we go, well, now remember, you shouldn't talk every day because you're dating then, or we talk every couple weeks. I'm like, well, that's not, I don't think it's moving very fast, whatever. But definitely we need to talk to people in our life and say, hey, I've met somebody and I'm hearing some of the same things I had in the last relationship. And how do I get out of it? How do I stop it? How do I end it? Or there's somebody in church and they're in the same class I'm in. What do I do now? And so I think it is important. I love Proverbs 27:17. Let me just read this real quick. As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. How does that happen, Dan? How can we sharpen each other?
I think we have to open ourselves up to other people and be willing to hear the constructive help, the words that they have for us. I'm trying to avoid criticism, but sometimes we need to hear what's true about ourselves that we're not seeing. And then we also need to be the kind of people that are brave enough to say something to somebody else that they need to hear. And often we're a little bit afraid to do that because we might afraid it'll hurt our friendship. I was talking to you earlier about nice guys. Remember I said that sometimes nice guys have a problem in relationships and they don't know why. They go, I'm such a nice guy, and they always want the bad boy. And the reality is sometimes nice guys think that they have everything they need because they're nice, when in reality, they may have insecurities, neediness. There may be things that are coming out in that relationship where the woman, it's a little unattractive to women. And so they keep doing this and they think they're perfect. Whereas if they opened themselves up and said, hey, I seem to have the same pattern. I'm nice. It starts off and then the woman doesn't want me anymore. What's going on? And their friend could say, hey, I can help you. There's a pattern and this is what I think is going on. So we just need to be that across the board. It can be true of work too. Like, how do I become a better employee? How do I become a better son, a better father, whatever it is. So,
Well, and also, some people are watching that are married, Dan. And so can there be flags in marriages as well?
oh yeah. There's times, Teresa and I were in a very busy season, and she came up to me and said, Dan, I just don't feel connected to you, which kind of hurt me because I feel connected to you, But it doesn't matter what I feel. What matters is what she's experiencing. So we began to talk about it, and we were doing a lot of ministry, and we were not putting date time on the calendar. And so, of course, she didn't feel connected because we weren't making us a priority. And so had we continued to do that, that would have been very damaging to our relationship. So her coming and talking to me about it helped me to understand, ooh, we need to do something about this. And so we have a good line of communication now where she seems to be more sensitive to that than I am. So I'm always listening to her, but I need help sometimes as a husband. We call it the HIT program, the husband in training, where
I remember years. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
No, I just remember years ago I had a pastor whose wife said, if one more person calls and tells me how wonderful my husband is, I'm going to hit him, because the way he is at work, everybody loves him and he's helpful, but when he gets home, I can't even get him to take out the trash.
Yeah.
And so it was just interesting, even in their marriage, how, she's like, Kris, I'm just warning you right now, and you get married, I'm just telling you right now, and I'm like, okay, what are you telling me? And so it definitely, I think, in all of our relationships, and even with me and my mom, we were having one day a week, I was doing something with her. I call it a date as well.
Yeah.
We'd say, we're going to go thrift store, because she loves to go thrift store and have lunch. And when I go for a period of time and we can't have that because of my work or things going on with her, I can tell she's just like, she loves going. I give her one whole day to go do stuff with her. Yeah. And so lately we haven't been able to do that. And so this week coming up, I'm taking her to see Cece Winans for her birthday, and she's so excited. And it's just a special time for her, because I want to build memories, whatever time she's got left, I've got left on this earth. I want to build experiences. And that's something too. It's like we keep buying each other stuff, people do in general, we all buying each other Christmas presents. But I would say this year, seek out experiences, build memories of things that you'll have forever when the stuff that you buy goes away or forgotten about. And so so in all of our relationships, we have to look at those red flags, the yellow flag, green flags, even in our family relationships, what is, so that we want them to keep, growing. We want them to be healthy. So we we continue to pray, right? Continue to pray about going forward in our relationships, our friendships, romantic relationships, and getting more information, being strategic, but then also in our, engaged relationships and marriage, early marriage, been married forever, don't take each other for granted, and because you can have an incredible marriage that can last 30 or 40 years. Mm-hmm. You don't have to be like, some of you might go, well, my parents were married for 40 years and they couldn't stand each other. I don't want to be in that, but I could be, I'm too old to be married to somebody for 40 years, but I'm just saying, it's like, you have to work at it. Yeah. All relationships require, right? We work with Lord, and then work with others.
Amen to that.
But what, read that last one there. What might be a red flag today, could it change?
Yes. And we mentioned that earlier. I think when we have a red flag, it's often an indicator of something we're struggling with. Many people become aware of it and then work on it and overcome some of the most difficult things in life. Lying, right? Addictions, selfishness. There's all kinds of things that we experience as people that we overcome. And even some things might not be horribly bad on character, but it's a season you're in. You went through a divorce, you're broken, you're not really in a place to be in a romantic relationship after that. Maybe you need healing. So there's a lot of things that happen in our lives that change the status of our flags, and giving people grace to be who they are, when they are in their life, is a huge gift you can give to somebody. We don't have to marry them, but we can still love them.
Yeah. And you know what? On the flip side of that, you could have a friendship with somebody that you thought, yeah, he's dorky or she's weird. And then over time, you're like, he's kind of cute. And you know what? I like dorky people, women, whatever.
Yeah.
And then that yellow flag, that red flag might go to a yellow and it might go to a green, which is, those things that we create compatibility, things we have in common, things we enjoy, the things we want to do together and so on. And
I think some people make flags that don't need to be flags. They come up with a list of things. They have to be this, they have to be this. And then they miss, like you said, they miss somebody that's wonderful right in front of them because they have made unnecessary, arbitrary flags. I won't date somebody with kids. That was one of mine. I ended up, God worked on me.
You raised your kids, you were done.
Yes.
You were done.
I have 5 kids. I was done.
Yeah. Well, I used to say that too. And then now I'm at a place where, I hope they have really nice grandkids. So those flags could end up being a green flag, which could then lead to a checkered flag. And what's a checkered flag?
That's the finish line. That's marriage. That's proposals. That's the wedding gown and wedding cake, the big family party.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So, we hope that, some of this has connected with you or maybe made you even aware that, I think you need to pray for yourself too and go, am I giving off some of the answers and things or body language or, comments that I make to where I'm the red flag or the yellow flag for someone. And then in the same way, I'm sorry that this is a red flag for me. If you believe sex outside of marriage or you're okay with, lying or cheating to the government or whatever, then you know what, I'll stay single, So we just need to be praying. And I hope that what we've shared tonight triggered some things in your mind and made you think of some things and maybe go a little slower in some of your relationships. And then some of you are not going fast enough. You're so slow.
Come on. 7 years is plenty of time to get to know somebody.
You're sitting at home and waiting for the FedEx guy to be the person you talk to, or the Domino's pizza girl or whatever. And you don't get to talk to them that long. I promise you. Right now, they are in a hurry to deliver and get out of there. So, but we also want to just, transition this to say that we wrote the study because we want you to do the study. But the study's not been designed for you to do by yourself. We want you to do it with someone else. And so, and you may say, well, I don't have anybody to do it with. Well, get the study and start praying and asking God to bring, someone in your life that you could do it with. Now, I'm not saying if
We've
you're a girl,
got a website here. I'll pull it up for you.
Or vice versa. But I would say same sex first, do it that way first. And then, or pray about, presenting the material to your church, to your Sunday school class or small group. And it is a 12-week study, and it's designed as a closed study. And what that means is the first couple of weeks, it doesn't matter. People come in and out. But after that, we really suggest that people can leave, but nobody new can join because you're sharing some personal things. This is about your identity in Christ, why our relationships fail, boundaries, conflict resolution, the blind spots, all of those things. And people got to start sharing some stuff and shouldn't have to keep repeating and not feel they can't trust those that are there. We also are looking for people who can lead this. And we don't say, let me change that word. We need you to, the book's the teacher, right, Dan? The book's the teacher. You're simply the facilitator. So don't feel like you have to have it all together. Or, Kris, I've had 2 bad marriages. I cannot facilitate this. Yes, you can if you learn something. Okay.
Yeah. And we also have a special going on with the book right now.
We do.
Yes.
Yes.
So
you're showing our website.
On Amazon right here. You can pick the book up for only $15, a little Black Friday into December special.
Yes. And so, in fact, all my books are also on sale right now for the month of December, and just want to encourage you to purchase it. But this is a good time to get it. If you have Prime, you don't pay any delivery charge, and it's a good time to get a bunch of them for your church and start the study. But we don't want you to start it just to start it. We want you to start it because God is telling you to, because it's something that's important to you. If you've been in the study, put in the chat if you've been in the study. Maybe somebody wants to talk to you about what you went through. We also have a leader's guide on our website, and Dan can probably connect to that and show you.
Yep.
We have a leader's guide that is password protected, and we just like you to fill out a form only because we kind of want to know who's leading who's facilitating it, just so we can make sure you have everything you need. But we have the back end that really holds your hand through the whole process. You need marketing materials. You need to ask more questions. Let me give you Dan's phone number. No, it's actually on the website. And we want to help you. We want to help you start this, not just to start at one time and be done, but we're looking for people that, like people who lead divorce care and grief share, this becomes a part of their heart, and they see the value of this material change in people's lives. Now, understand, you start with 15 people, you'll end with 10. You start with 10, you'll end with 5. You start with 5, you may end up with 2. Because some people get into the study and go, I don't want to change. I don't want to work on me. I'm just here to find a date.
Yeah,
okay?
By the way, Polly asks if it can be facilitated on Zoom. And yes, that's how we originally did it. It was Zoom because it was COVID, right? So
it's not as good as in person because, you have better accountability in person. You can know a little bit about the person, especially if they're in your town. But we've done it both ways, and whatever works for you. But we have all the guidelines on how to do it, additional information, content, Q&A, all kinds of things in the back end. People are putting in that they've been through the study. They facilitated the study.
That's great.
I believe it's life-changing. Here's the thing. Some of you are going to go through it, and you're like, well, I haven't met anybody. Okay, well, that happens. Or you'll go through it and go, I need to stop praying right now for a spouse. I need to work on me. That's good. Yeah. Or you'll go through it and go, I need divorce care. I need grief share. I need counseling. That's good. Or you may go through it and go, you know what, Dan and Kris, I'm actually in a really good place. So you know what? It must be God. It's the reason I don't have anybody. And so that's what I love about the study. People go through it, and I hear all over what has happened in their life. Yeah. But you have to apply what you learn, right, Dan?
It works best that way. If you put gas in the tank, the car will run.
Yeah. So some people go through the study, and then they'll go and they won't do the intentional friendship. They'll skip right to dating. And I go, were you not in the study? Did you remember that chapter 10? And so, so I go, if you don't apply it, then it's not going to help you. And we wrote this based on our experiences, but also the experiences of other people where we've learned. And so we don't know everything. And we're hoping that, some of you will have your own experiences and your own things that you've gone through, and you'll be able to help somebody too. Yeah. So, look there. Yep. That's great. Yes. We're more than willing to help you. Just reach out to us. You can get our information on our website. Yep. You can click from the website right to Amazon, or look us up on Amazon and order the book that way. We have a small companion guide called Intentional Friendship, and basically chapter 10.
Here.
So then the book is right
it's
here.
It's got the flags in it as well. So.
Yes. So what happens, guys, is chapter 10 was the chapter on intentional friendship, and it has all the questions, the 650 questions. And once people go through the study, they're like, I wish that chapter was in a smaller format so I could carry it around with me, or when I'm go to coffee and I want to ask the questions, I don't have to carry the big one. So we're like, okay, so we made a small one. And we've sold them both together, and that one's on sale as well. So we hope that you order them, and they make great Christmas gifts, right?
Yep. I put the link in the comments section, so if you want to get Amazon, you can, and also to our website.
Yeah. And guys, we believe the content of this will change lives, but it takes people like you watching, people like you that have done it, to tell people about it. We're not a big company, have tons and tons of money for marketing. So our marketing is really the word of mouth. Yeah. And for people and if you've bought the study, you've gone through the study, please comment on our Amazon
page. Yes.
And because that helps us as well. And it puts us higher up in the rankings for Amazon. And so, and then Amazon wants to make money too. So they're looking for products that are selling. Yeah. And so the more comments you make, the better it helps us. And stay tuned to our website, and we have articles on our website. We are hoping, we're praying about doing this once a month, right, Dan?
Yep. So stay tuned. Also on our Facebook page, we'll post upcoming studies that we're going to do. Some may be in your area. So
yes. Yes, and also if you're going to be in Europe, if you're going to be in the UK in April, we're going to be doing the first really big intentional relationships retreat, led by Karina and Nigel Van Zyl, which are two folks that Karina was leading the intentional study, and then the second time she taught it, Nigel came in, and then the third time they co-led it together, and the fourth time they were married. So we love their story, and they represent us in Europe for people who want to start groups there. So if you know somebody in that area, it's like, I would love to, they're the couple, they're listed on our website. You can definitely contact them. But we're going to have a retreat in April. Super excited. And one day maybe I can get Teresa and Dan to come with me to England.
Would love to.
That would be awesome. But we would love to also come to your city. We'll come by Zoom or we'll come in person. You just have to contact us, and we would love to do that.
Yep, absolutely. How about I pray for everybody, and then we can say goodbye and let them get to their Christmas shopping.
Yes.
All right. Lord, we are so grateful to be here and to talk about relationships. And Lord, we know we all need you. You're our God who loves us, who came and reached out to us and has helped us and supported us and helped us grow. And I just pray that in our relationships, we will reflect your grace, and we will go into relationships wisely and help really get to know people, and that you might bring the people in our lives you want for us. Help us to take advantage of every opportunity to grow in you and to grow in relationships. And it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right.
Wow. Hour and a half went by fast.
Yes.